You know it's this. Take a perk and a talk of that shit. Money swallowing like sis. Did it perfect in the kid. Got a billion who sang on my head. Look up better. Put on the road I just spent. I know we got $1 million. The devil that shit ain't not cheaper again.
Hello and welcome back, fellow anime lovers, to MangaMuse. I am delighted to have you join us once again in the world of fanfiction and fantasy. This is the 13th part of What If Naruto Enters K-Pop Demon Hunters. Special note, this fanfic is written and a masterpiece of Slygold on FANFICTIONnet. Do check and support the author too. Now smash the like, share and subscribe button for more. Also press the bell icon so that you never miss such great parts. Thanks for the introduction. Now let's dive into the world. Celine's home had always been quiet, layered with seals and wards. Tonight, however, the air shifted. A vibration she hadn't felt in years coiled along her spine, a familiar, sickening thrum. Her breath froze, her hand already at her chest as the resonance flared. She summoned her soul weapon. The air ripped apart in a shimmer, and a scythe midnight black with veins of violet manifested in her grip. The irony cut deep every time. A hunter's blade had been her sword, forged for precision and discipline. But her soul had chosen this raw, vicious, final. She didn't even have time to curse the irony before she felt it. A shadow stretched across her wall. "Oh, Celine!" Orochimaru's voice slithered into the room as he stepped through the darkness, pale face split with that too-wide smile. His golden eyes glimmered with something both predatory and mocking. "What did Ryu tell you about attacking me?" Celine spun, scythe cleaving the air with a sound like screaming metal. Orochimaru leaned back, spine bending like a serpent, the blade cutting inches from his face. His laugh was soft, infuriating. Her voice cracked with fury. "That was before she found out you turned yourself into a demon. Before you killed her." Orochimaru's expression shifted, feigned sadness tugging at his mouth. He tilted his head, mocking pity. But Celine, it was the only way to gain this. His hand slipped along his collar, tugging it open. Across his pale skin, purple patterns crawled like living things, pulsating in rhythm with his heartbeat. "After all," he whispered, "a sealer's blood is a powerful ingredient. For hunters. For demons. And for me." The air shook when she lunged. Her scythe met steel kusanagi. The legendary blade gleamed in Orochimaru's hand, its edge still as flawless as the day he'd wielded it as a hunter. He hadn't bothered against Naruto in the exams years ago. But against her? He drew it without hesitation. Steel screamed against soul iron, sparks spitting across the warded floorboards. Celine bared her teeth, fury in every swing. He was fast, faster than she remembered, his demon resonance thrumming like a beast under his skin. Outside, the air shivered. Kisame crouched in the shadows, Samahata humming at his side. His gills flared, unease prickling at his instincts. "What's taking him so long?" he muttered, tilting his head. He bent low to peer inside. And that instinct saved his life. Steel whistled past his cheek. A thick, brutal staff edges honed razor-sharp slammed into the ground where his head had been. The earth split open with the impact. Kisame's grin widened as he bounded back, Samahata sliding into his grip with an eager growl. Jiraiya stepped into the moonlight, his stance loose, deceptively calm. White mane flowing, eyes sharp as knives. His staff shifted in his hands, the balance of brute force and honed precision radiating off him like a storm. "I'm assuming Orochimaru's inside," Jiraiya said, his voice level, hard. Kisame's grin never wavered, but his stomach sank. Toad style. That stance. That presence. The Sannin wasn't here to spar. He was here to end things. Few demons dared stay in the presence of monsters like this. Even Kisame knew the truth, Jiraiya could kill with a finger, and still not break a sweat. But orders were orders. And Orochimaru wasn't done. Samahata purred, hungry. Kisame licked his lips, rolling his shoulders. Heh. Let's see if the rumors are true, old man. And the night split apart as steel and chakra clashed, hunter and demon colliding with the weight of history behind them. Inside the house, the clash of scythe and sword slowed for a moment, both combatants circling, waiting for the other to lunge. The air itself felt heavy, pressing down with the weight of two predators who had known each other far too long. Celine's grip on her scythe widened, her eyes narrowing as she felt Jiraiya's presence flare just outside. Relief washed through her chest. If anyone could match Orochimaru's twisted cunning, it was him. Even Orochimaru, for all his grins and mockery, glanced toward the door, a flicker of wariness cutting across his features. But then the snake returned, voice smooth as poison. Have you seen her lately, Celine? Orochimaru purred, stepping lightly around her guard, his golden eyes gleaming. My daughter so appealing, so radiant. And yet she denies the gift I gave her. Such a naughty little child. Celine's stomach twisted violently at his words, her scythe tightening in her grasp. My daughter. That phrase alone made her want to vomit. She had been strict with Rumi all her life for this very reason, fearing what Orochimaru's bloodline might awaken. Fear of Rumi becoming like this monster. But Rumi had proven herself time and again bright, kind, nothing like him. Her voice cracked with fury. Don't you dare speak of her. She is not your daughter. You are no father. You're a monster. Orochimaru's grin widened impossibly, his jaw dislocating with an audible crack. Rows of jagged, demonic teeth unfolded like a nightmare within his mouth. The mockery in his voice turned sickly sweet, each word laced with venom. Oh, but she is, Celine. She bears my mark. And that makes her mine. His tongue flickered past his fangs, the word dripping like honeyed poison. And since she does, I think it's time she learns her heritage. He hissed the last word, heritage, in a drawn-out rhythm that crawled under her skin, a lullaby sung by a predator to prey. Celine felt bile rise in her throat, rage igniting her resonance until the scythe in her hands burned brighter. She could barely breathe past the disgust, but her resolve was iron. Rumi would never belong to this monster. Celine's roar tore the night apart. She lunged, her scythe a gleaming crescent of soul resonance, every swing burning the air. Why now, you monster? Why wait all these years? Orochimaru slipped beneath her strike with inhuman grace, his pale form bending like smoke. His boot lashed out, sending her body crashing into the stone lip of the fireplace. Ash and sparks scattered across the room, firelight dancing on the sick grin carved across his face. Well, Orochimaru drawled, his tongue flicking against sharp teeth, my boss wants her little boy toy. And you're Rumi? His tone turned mockingly sweet. She's simply a tool. Nothing personal, Celine. Trust me. She pushed back to her feet, scythe hissing with power. But before she could strike, his jaws dislocated unnaturally wide. Fangs sank into her neck, resonance flaring then faltering. Her scythe clattered to the floor. Her body seized, then went limp. Orochimaru caught her with obscene tenderness, fingers brushing her cheek as though she were something precious. Sleep well, my Celine, he hissed, his voice sickly rhythmic. When you wake it'll all be over. The wall exploded inward. Kisame's body slammed across the room, torn and bloodied, his massive blade clattering away. Behind him stormed Jiraiya, his resonance shaking the foundations, raw power rolling off him in waves that made even the walls tremble. Orochimaru, he said, his voice low, dangerous. For the first time, Orochimaru's grin faltered but only for a breath. He hauled Kisame upright with one clawed hand, ignoring the blood pouring from the shark man's ruined arm. I would love to stay and chat, Jiraiya, he sneered, eyes glinting with serpentine hunger. But as you can see, he glanced at Celine, limp on the ground, you've got your hands full. Before Jiraiya could lunge, Orochimaru's resonance flared. The air twisted, reality buckling around him. When the haze cleared, both Orochimaru and Kisame were gone, vanishing into the night like a nightmare dissipating with dawn. Jiraiya cursed, dropping to Selene's side. His rough hands pressed against her throat pulse, faint but there. Relief punched through him. He strpped his cloak and pressed it to the wound, bellowing for medics, the sound carrying through the entire block. As hunters rushed toward the house, Jiraiya's jaw tightened. Orochimaru's words echoed in his mind, corrosive as poison. My boss wants her boy toy. Naruto. Jiraiya's eyes darkened, his resonance still rattling the floorboards. So that's your game, Orochimaru, you finally found something worse than yourself. The desert wind seemed to follow Temari into the cabin of the plane as she spoke, her voice tight with fatigue but steady. They came at night, she began, eyes shadowed by worry. Two men in black cloaks, red clouds stitched into the fabric. We thought they were just another wave of demons when the horde hit. Hundreds of them. They stormed the walls, poured through every street of the sand. Hunters, guards, even civilians fought back, but, she hesitated, jaw clenched, it was a distraction. Naruto and Sasuke exchanged a look, silent, sharp. Sakura leaned forward, pressing, how did they get Gaara? Temari's hands curled into fists. By the time we fought off the demons, the cloaked men were gone. So was Gaara. Witnesses said the taller one laughed the entire time, swinging some grotesque puppet like a weapon. The other rained explosives from the sky, an artist, if you could call him that. Sasuke's eyes narrowed, his mind replaying every name and face he knew that might fit. Naruto stayed quiet, his hand gripping the armrest until his knuckles went white. Temari looked at each of them, her voice dropping. They didn't just take him, they orchestrated the whole siege just to steal him. And if what the elders say is true, they'll be after his resonance. The cabin went still. For Naruto, the thought of Gaara, someone who bore the same scars of loneliness being in Akatsuki, hands twisted in his chest. He leaned forward, eyes burning. Then we're going to get him back, Naruto said, firm enough that even the engine seemed to fall silent beneath his vow. Temari's shoulders eased, just barely. That's why I'm here. You're his only chance. The heat of the desert still clung to the air as the team stepped off the plane. The scent of scorched sand and charred stone lingered, a sharp reminder of the horde that had swept through the village only hours before. Buildings still stood, though many bore burns and cracks, smoke curling faintly from shattered rooftops. Hunters patrolled in small squads, their uniforms torn and their faces haggard. Naruto walked at the front, Sasuke and Sakura at his side, Kakashi just behind. Their masks were on, their movements disciplined, yet there was something about their gait that made the villagers pause. Hunters and civilians alike knew these were no ordinary hunters. Whispers stirred, and like the sea parting before a storm, the crowd stepped aside, giving them passage. Naruto's hands tightened into fists at his side. He could feel the despair pressing in, the way the people looked at them not only with hope but with desperation. I can't afford to lose myself now, he thought, forcing his breath steady. An elder walked forward, leaning on her cane, the lines of age carved into her face, but her eyes were sharp and commanding. Elder Chiyo. The weight of the Sand's history seemed to follow her with every step. Naruto didn't hesitate. He moved ahead of his team, dropped to one knee, and bowed his head respectfully. His voice rang steady in the tense silence. Elder Chiyo. We are here to rescue Gaara. Her gaze lingered on him for a long, quiet moment, measuring. Then she nodded, slow but firm, her hand tightening on the cane. Then let us pray you are not too late. The council chamber of Sunagakure was heavy with silence. Elder Chiyo sat at the head, her eyes shadowed with grief, but her voice was sharp when she finally spoke. You wish to know what happened? Then listen well. Team 7 gathered close, their masks still on, Kakashi at their side. The walls of the chamber were scorched from the night before, as if even stone remembered the demon horde. It began at dusk, Chiyo continued. The first wave were lesser demons, a distraction to keep our hunters occupied. By the time we realized their true purpose, Gaara had already confronted them. Two cloaked figures in red clouds Akatsuki. One was Deidara, a demon who shapes clay into living explosives. Each bird he created was infused with resonance, detonation strong enough to bring down walls. The other, her voice faltered, then hardened. The other is Sasori. Sasuke narrowed his eyes. What's different about him? Chiyo's hand trembled slightly on her cane. Sasori no longer fights with his own body. He crafts puppets from corpses. Not wood, not constructs bodies. He stitches the resonance of fallen hunters and demons into his collection, bending their strength to his will. Last night, the streets crawled with the dead, strung up like marionettes. Some were our comrades. Some were demons we'd slain years ago. All forced to dance again under his command. A chill passed through the room. Even Naruto, who had seen Orochimaru's cruelty, felt his gut twist. He clenched his fists tight. Kakashi's eye narrowed behind his mask. So he builds an army from corpses. That explains why the village hunters struggled to make ground. Every kill only fed him more weapons. Chiyo nodded grimly. Exactly. And Gaara he held them off as long as he could. But Deidara's bombs tore the sky apart, and Sasori's puppets overwhelmed our defenses. By the time the demon horde was broken, Gaara had been taken. Her gaze fell on Naruto, steady, almost pleading. If you are truly the Stormbringer, if you carry the fire of your parents, then bring him back. End this horror before Sasori adds the Kazekage to his collection. Naruto bowed his head once. His voice was low, but unshaken. We'll bring him home. The chamber doors opened with a groan, letting in the smell of smoke and scorched sand. Outside, Sunagakure was quiet, now too quiet. The aftermath of the attack lingered in every broken wall and BLD-stained street. Naruto stepped forward first, his expression hard, fists clenching and unclenching at his sides. Without a word, he knelt, pressing his palm to the ground. The air stirred violently, sand scattering as resonance rippled outward. A fox of pure wind burst into existence, its body shimmering like a mirage, tails whipping around as it bowed to its MSTR. Beside him, Sasuke raised his blade. Dark flames licked the steel, curling into the air until they coalesced into wings. With a screech, a phoenix of black fire erupted skyward, feathers scattering embers as it circled above. Kakashi simply adjusted his gloves and murmured a single word. Sparks crackled at his feet before exploding upward, a massive wolf of electricity snapping its jaws with a sound like thunder. Its fur rippled with arcs of blue-white current, every movement sharp enough to split stone. The others looked on in awe, but it was Sakura who surprised them most. She closed her eyes, roots blooming from her hands, twisting and weaving into a form. In a breath, a rabbit leapt free, its body composed of countless green leaves bound together, ears twitching, eyes glowing faintly gold. Naruto blinked. You learned how to summon. Sakura opened one eye and smirked. What? You three aren't the only ones who can get creative. For a moment, even Sasuke's lips curved in a faint smirk. Kakashi gave her a single approving nod, which said more than any compliment could. The four summons stood in a line: wind, flame, storm, and leaf, each waiting for their orders. Fan out, Naruto said, his voice low, controlled. Find Gaara's trail. Don't come back until you've got something. The summons howled, shrieked, hissed, and leapt into action, scattering in every direction across the burning desert and ruined village. Team 7 stood together, shoulder to shoulder, watching them vanish into the horizon. For the first time since arriving in the sand, there was no hesitation, no doubt. They were hunters, and now the hunt had begun. The chamber hummed with unnatural energy, each figure nothing more than a flickering projection cloaked in darkness. Crimson clouds glowed faintly on their robes, the mark of the Akatsuki. Pain's voice filled the room, low and distorted. 2 of our own have fallen. The Namikaze and his allies proved more troublesome than expected. But we will not falter. Sasori. Deidara. You have succeeded in taking the One-Tail's resonance. Now, you will remain. The air shifted as the words sank in. Stay, and see if you can take the Uchiha, Pain continued. His resonance is powerful, it can be harvested. So is the White Fang's. If the girl is there, Pain's eyes narrowed, his tone unbending, you may keep her resonance. Sasori's lips curved in a cruel smile. Then I'll add her to my collection. Pain gave a single nod. Our intelligence says Team 7 and Kakashi are the only ones being deployed, but the sand may send others. If the battle is too great, retreat. We will send reinforcements to thin out the hunters. Your task is clear, hold them, and if possible, harvest. The voices of the gathered demons rumbled agreement before one by one, the holograms winked out. Only Sasori and Deidara remained in the cavern, standing before the massive ceiling array. At its center lay Gaara. The Kazekage's chest barely rose, his body already paling. Shikaku's resonance swirled above him, an endless storm of sand and gold being ripped free. Deidara smirked, tilting his head as his clay bird perched on his shoulder. A appealing sight, Un. The life draining from him, what a masterpiece. Sasori's puppet strings twitched, tightening around the vessel as the last fragments of the One-Tail's power screamed into the seal. Art fades, he said coldly. But collections last forever. The cavern shook as the final echo of Shikaku's roar died out. Silence followed, broken only by Gaara's limp body falling against the cold stone. The desert winds howled around them as Team 7 and Temari skidded to a halt at the mouth of a jagged cave. The stench of BLD and charred sand clung to the air, heavy and sour. Inside, pale light glowed from burning seals. At the center lay Gaara's still form, limp and cold on the stone floor. Gaara, Temari's voice cracked, barely more than a whisper. She staggered forward, her fan trembling in her hands. Movement stirred. Sasori stepped out from the shadows, crimson cloak brushing the ground, his eyes gleaming with cruel satisfaction. Beside him, Deidara perched lightly, a grin tugging at his lips as clay birds flitted around his shoulders. Behind them, shapes poured out of the dark Nuknin demons, half-rotted, their twisted auras burning like black fire. They fanned out, surrounding Kakashi and Sakura with predatory intent. Temari's eyes locked on her brother's body. Her breath hitched then froze as Sasori's hands rose. Threads of black, pulsing with demonic resonance, lashed from his fingers and sank into Gaara's corpse. The body convulsed. Stop! Temari screamed, rushing forward, but Kakashi's hand shot out, holding her back. The corpse shuddered and stood. Its eyes were lifeless, hollow pits, its movements stiff. Gaara's sand gourd cracked open at his back, and grains spilled free unnaturally, pulled like a puppet strings. Sasori's smile widened, his voice low and cruel, BLD to bind, flesh to shape, soul to command. Kill your sister. Gaara's corpse turned, sand writhing like a serpent around him. Temari's face went pale, her lips trembling. Gaara. The lifeless form stepped forward, sand coiling into a blade at his hand, aimed directly at her chest. The air in the cavern shattered into chaos the instant Naruto let Kurama's form bloom around him. The storm kitsune howled, its tails ripping through exploding clay as Deidara's birds detonated in rapid succession. Each blast shook the ground, but Kurama barreled forward, the concussive waves rolling off his massive body. Still, the shock waves made the fox stumble, claws carving trenches into stone. Kakashi was already swallowed by a tide of Nuknin demons, his wolf of crackling blue lightning tearing through them in savage arcs. Even so, they pressed hard faster, stronger, their feral resonance pulling in packs around him. Sakura's leaf rabbit bounded at her side, roots flaring up from the ground to snare legs and snap bones, but for every monster crushed, 2 more surged forward. Temari didn't hesitate. Her fan snapped open, soul resonance spilling into the desert air, and a violent current wrapped her like wings. She rode it upward, air cutting against her skin as she soared. Below her, Gaara's corpse moved with jerking precision, sand writhing in blades and tendrils that clawed for her. Temari's teeth grit, the tears in her eyes whipped away by wind as she fought back her own brother's desecrated body. Sasuke's lightning cloak blazed alive, fire flaring in tandem as black flames licked his sword. His phoenix shrieked from the sky, a trail of flame splitting the cave ceiling as it dove. He aimed straight for Sasori, eyes glowing red. Sasori only smirked. "I'm not here for games. I'm here for Mirook's vessel." Before Sasuke could close the distance, Deidara whistled sharp, and the fight shifted. SWCH. Deidara barked, clay already molding in his palms. Sasori moved smoothly into his place, puppet strings lashing outward. Deidara's clay bird swooped straight for Sasuke, forcing him to weave between detonations as his cloak struggled to keep pace with the blasts. Sparks tore at the ground as fire and lightning clashed against raining bombs. Sasuke's Sharingan whirled. His every dodge was calculated, precise, but even he couldn't ignore how much speed he needed to keep up. The sheer relentlessness of Deidara's explosions demanded more than brute strength. Across the field, Sasori's threads whistled toward Naruto, seeking to bind. The puppet MSTR's smile widened as Kurama's tails batted them away, sparks of storm resonance shredding them into ribbons. The battlefield fractured Kurama's storm against Sasori's corpse puppets, Sasuke against Deidara's bombs, Temari against her own brother's sand, and Kakashi and Sakura drowning in nuke nin. It wasn't just a fight. It was war in a cave. The cavern shuddered with the clash of summons and explosions. Firelight twisting shadows long across the walls. Deidara's clay birds detonated overhead, Sakura's roots tore through fleeing nuke nin, and Sasuke's lightning cut arcs of light through the smoke. But in the center of the chaos, Sasori only smiled, pulling strings none of the others could see. He tilted his head, red hair catching the glow of flame, and his voice cut the air like a scalpel. "Tell me, Stormbringer, would you like a family reunion?" The earth split open at his gesture. Two shapes rose, stiff, shuddering, each bound by invisible strings that hummed with Sasori's resonance. Naruto's heart froze before his eyes even confirmed what his body already knew. Lightning wreathed one corpse's hands, arc sparking as if mocking his every stance. The other carried whirlpools, water coiling unnaturally around her arms, her hair red like flame and shadow at once. His father. His mother. Naruto staggered back, the storm cloak around him flickering as if the sight alone had robbed it of oxygen. The kitsune's outline, once roaring and solid, sputtered into thin, broken fragments. For a heartbeat there was silence in his ears, then the silence fractured into screaming. Sasuke's blade faltered mid-swing against Deidara as his Sharingan caught sight of the impossible. Sakura froze, her roots withering for just a moment. Even Kakashi's single eye widened, the wolf of lightning beside him growling low, uncertain. But Naruto broke. He hit the cavern floor hard, hands digging into the stone, claws gouging lines he didn't remember making. His chest heaved but no breath came. His vision blurred until all he could see were their faces, empty, hollow, cruelly animated by Sasori's strings. The fox cloak guttered out. The storm didn't roar. It screamed. It screamed inside his skull, a soundless hurricane that hollowed him out and filled him with something rawer than grief, sharper than rage. His throat tore with half-breathed sounds, not words but broken things, the language of a child left alone too long. Sasori leaned forward, smirk wide, every syllable dripping venom. "I was going to take your sister, but her corpse was too weak. It crumbled in my hands." He tugged the strings, and the puppets of Minato and Kushina lurched toward their son. "But this," he laughed low, relishing every crack in Naruto's voice, "this is art. Watching the storm not roar, but scream." Naruto's nails split as they tore stone. "Kurama," he tried, but there was no answering thunder, only his own pulse deafening him. His body arched and spasmed, half seizure, half resonance flare, blacking out and snapping back. Every time he caught his breath he lost it again, drowning in his own panic. The puppets stepped closer, Sasori's strings humming. Their dead mouths moved like they remembered speech, whispering phantom syllables Naruto could almost believe were his name. And Sasori's chuckle filled the cavern, pleased, cruel, echoing. Scream all you like, boy. No one hears you but me. Naruto's knees buckled as the puppets lurched forward, the storm cloak collapsing into sparks around him. He wanted to move, to fight, to scream anything but his body locked. The world blurred, not from Sasori's strings, but from the rush of memory slamming into him. He remembered his father's hand, calloused but steady, the way it wrapped around his tiny fingers as they walked through Konoha streets. Minato's laugh, quiet but warm, whispering encouragement when Naruto stumbled over his training stances. He remembered his mother's voice, Kushina humming softly in the kitchen, her arms wrapping him in the kind of embrace that chased nightmares away. The taste of her food, the way she scolded him and then kissed the top of his head, every contradiction full of love. Late-night talks by the fire. Hushed promises that tomorrow would be brighter. His father's shadow falling across him as he fell asleep, his mother's hand brushing his hair from his eyes. Oh gods! His parents. His wonderful parents. Now their bodies were mangled, disfigured, twisted into mockeries. Their eyes empty, their motions stiff and wrong, dragged like dolls on invisible strings. Toys. Sasori had reduced them to toys. The weight crushed him. His chest seized as if all the air had been ripped out of the cavern. His fingers dug into stone, cracking it, trembling with rage that had nowhere to go. The memories clashed violently with the horror in front of him, love and laughter drowned out by the grotesque puppets shambling closer. Naruto's throat tore with a sound that wasn't a word, wasn't even human. The storm within him split apart at the seams, every crack screaming his grief, his horror, his fury. And Sasori's smile widened, feeding on his collapse. Yes, he hissed. Break for me, Stormbringer. Break. Sasori's grin widened as his fingers twitched, invisible threads jerking Minato's corpse forward. The fourth blurred, lightning spilling across his dead hands, speed amplified to something only another monster could follow. Naruto's blade snapped up on reflex, steel screeching as it caught the strike. His body moved without thought. Instinct. Training drilled into his bones by countless battles. But his soul, his heart froze. From the other side, Kushina lunged, whirlpool resonance twisting around her like living chains, snapping with the same ferocity she once used to protect him. Naruto staggered back, blocking again, then again, dodging her relentless fury. His teeth clenched so hard his jaw ached. Mom, he whispered, the word broken. His breath hitched as her sword cut inches from his face, the water screaming in a way that sounded almost alive. Sasori only smiled, cruel and cold. With another flick of his hands, more puppets crawled forward from the shadows, demons bound in wooden frames, broken hunters with hollow eyes, all shambling into the fight. They crashed against Kakashi and Sakura, forcing them to retreat step by step under the overwhelming tide. Dance for me, Namikaze, Sasori said, his voice carrying over the din, let your parents be the ones to carve you apart. A fitting end, don't you think? Naruto's sword clashed again with Minato's, sparks scattering, the weight of the blow rattling his arms. His heart screamed louder than the metal. Every instinct in him roared to fight back, to cut through, but every time his father's face, blank and lifeless, filled his vision, his hands faltered. Kushina pressed from the side, her whirlpool resonance exploding against the ground and hurling shards of stone into his chest. He gasped, stumbling, but still he didn't strike. Couldn't strike. His blade remained only a shield. The storm within him trembled, desperate to roar, but his soul couldn't bear the truth of it. They were his parents. Puppets or not, their hands, their stances, the echoes of everything he once loved now weaponized against him. And so Naruto dodged, blocked, staggered, fighting with all his strength but never truly fighting at all. Sasuke's smirk widened, his pale fingers twitching along the threads like a puppeteer plucking a harp. "Did you know?" His voice dripped poison. "I can make them scream too." The threads pulsed, glowing faintly with his demonic resonance. Naruto's heart lurched. From the hollow throats of his parents' corpses came the sound screams, raw and terrified. His mother's cry cracked like glass, high-pitched with anguish. His father's voice, deep and steady in life, now warped into a trembling, tortured howl. Naruto froze. The sound hit him like a blade through the chest, his breath tearing short. His vision blurred. "No," his voice broke, thin as a child's. Don't do that." His hand wavered on the sword hilt, grip loosening. The phantom sound of his family's agony burned through him worse than any wound. Sasuke's grin sharpened into cruelty. "Look at them. Even dead, they know pain. And it's your fault, Namikaze. You weren't there to save them then, and you won't save them now." Naruto staggered back, trying to cover his ears, but too late. Minato's corpse was already moving. His father's speed, enhanced with lightning, blurred across the space. Naruto's body reacted late, his stance faltering, heart too torn to resist. The blade bit into his shoulder. Pain flared hot and wet down his arm, blood splattering across the cave floor. Naruto gasped, stumbling back, staring in horror not at the wound but at the hand that struck him. His father's hand. His father's blade. Naruto's breath came ragged, his vision darkening at the edges. He couldn't strike. He couldn't fight. Sasuke's laughter echoed through the cavern like clattering bones. "Yes. Bleed for them. Cry for them. Let me see the boy who thought himself a storm break apart in the face of family." The storm inside Naruto flickered, then sputtered, weak and chaotic. His knees buckled, his sword dipped, and his heart screamed louder than the thunder ever could. Kakashi's wolf crackled with lightning, jaws snapping through a cluster of nuke-mean demons. Each bite sent bodies twitching, smoking husks falling to the cavern floor. His blade spun in sharp arcs, dismembering 3 more in one motion, but for every demon that fell, more poured from the shadows. Beside him, Sakura moved like a whirlwind of roots and steel. Her rabbit construct leapt from her side, scattering leaves that hardened into spears. She darted between blows, her sword flashing as willow branches erupted from the ground to entangle legs and shatter spines. Blood streaked her cheek, but her eyes never wavered. "Hold the line." Kakashi barked, his voice hard, strained. "I am." Sakura shot back, driving her blade through a demon's chest. It shrieked, resonance burning out of its eyes before it went limp. She ripped her sword free, panting, sweat mixing with crimson. But even as they fought like cornered beasts, their gazes flicked again and again to Naruto. He wasn't fighting. He wasn't himself. They could see it the way his movements stuttered, how his storm flickered weakly instead of roaring. Blood darkened his jacket where Minato's puppet had cut him, and his eyes gods, his eyes weren't a hunter's now. They were a child's. Kakashi's chest clenched as he deflected another strike. He knew that look. He'd seen it in mirrors, on nights when Obito's name burned behind his eyelids, when Rin's blood dripped endlessly in memory. That hollow, broken look of someone watching the ghosts of family haunt them. Sakura grit her teeth as her roots shattered another demon, her hands trembling with fury she couldn't aim at Sasori. She wanted to scream, to run to Naruto, to rip those threads apart and free his parents from that grotesque mockery. But she couldn't. She and Kakashi were being pushed to the brink, and if they broke rank even for an instant Naruto would be left utterly alone. Their hearts ached, their knuckles bled, but they kept cutting. Because that was all they could do. And both of them prayed, in the deepest corners of their souls, that their teammate no, their family could survive this torment long enough for the storm to rise again. Temari's fan cracked open with a snap, the iron ribs gleaming as she swung, and blades of wind screamed across the cave. They ripped into Gaara's body, opening lines of red across his pale chest and arms. Blood poured freshly from the wounds, staining the sand beneath him. But he didn't stop. The sand moved anyway, not by Gaara's will but Sasori's strings, jerking unnaturally as it coiled to crush her. Gaara, Temari's voice shook, eyes burning with tears. She'd seen her brother cold, quiet, withdrawn emo in the way only Gaara could be. He'd never needed to say much, his presence was steady, heavy, reliable. He had always been her silent anchor. Now he was just empty. Blood streamed from him, and still he advanced. His expression never changed, a mask of stillness with nothing behind it. No recognition. No trace of the boy who had become Kazekage. Temari's heart splintered. She had fought beside him through everything: his silences, his isolation, his quiet victories. He wasn't the loud one, or the reckless one. He was simply Gaara. Her little brother, the one she could always count on to stand at her side. And now Sasori had turned him into a puppet. A corpse-dripping Blood, driven forward like some grotesque weapon. Her fan trembled in her hands. She could barely see through her tears, but her arms didn't stop. "You're not my brother," she screamed, swinging again, the gusts sharp enough to shake the cavern walls. The wind tore into him, slicing his skin deeper, painting him red. His sand lunged again, heavy and merciless, forcing her into the air on currents of her own resonance. Every strike hurt her more than him. Because she knew with every cut, with every drop of Blood, she wasn't saving him. She was just cutting down what was left. And Sasori laughed, the sound echoing through the cavern, savoring her agony as much as Naruto's. Sasori's laughter echoed, a cruel rattle that dug into Naruto's skull as his mother's chains wrapped tighter, his father's lightning blade carving down with brutal precision. Each cut that landed wasn't just pain, it was torment. His parents' faces, blank, hollow, stolen from him a second time. Naruto's Blood spattered the cavern floor as he staggered back, his storm faltering, vision blurring. His sword shook in his grip. He couldn't do it. He couldn't. Then in the blur of lightning and water, he saw her. Rumi's face, the warmth of her smile, the anchor that had held him steady through everything. He remembered her voice, the vow they'd exchanged, the quiet certainty he had promised her, "I will always come back to you." Tears welled hot in his eyes as he choked on the words. "I'm sorry, Mom, Dad. But you're gone." His grip tightened, resonance screaming through his veins. "And she still needs me." The storm didn't roar. It answered. Wind ripped through the cavern, blades of air slicing rock into dust. Water spiraled from the ground in crashing currents. Lightning seared through it all, wreathing his body in a mantle of living storm. His stance shifted one blade forward, storm stance, the embodiment of his will. With a thunderous boom, he launched. His mother's whirlpool chains lashed out, her eyes vacant, her movements merciless. Naruto's storm blade carved through them, lightning screaming as it split water apart. His chest heaved, voice cracking, "Forgive me." And then he struck. His blade cleaved through her torso, the strike searing her with lightning so fierce it burned away the corpse's form. Kushina's puppet body collapsed into ash. Naruto's tears fell hot as he gasped, choking on the grief. Sasori only laughed harder. Appealing. But Naruto's eyes were steel now. He swapped his stance, storm dissolving into whirlpool. Twin blades sang into his hands, water threading their edges, wind coiling tight, lightning sharpening every motion into a blur. His father lunged, faster than lightning, Minato's corpse a blur of strikes. But whirlpool was a current, endless, adaptive, unyielding. Naruto's blades flowed with the tide, meeting every cut with a swirl, every strike with a redirected surge. The air howled, a hurricane born of grief and fury. Water guided his every step, lightning quickened every strike, wind stretched his reach into inevitability. Minato lunged one last time. And Naruto's blades crossed. With a cry that shook the cavern, he carved his father's body in three. The corpse fell in pieces, lifeless once more. The storm raged around him, but Naruto dropped to his knees, his body shaking, blades clattering to the stone. His breaths came ragged, tears falling freely, the echo of his parents' faces burning in his heart. "I'll carry you with me," he whispered, voice breaking. "But I have to live for her." Sasori clicked his tongue, his smirk fading into something more annoyed than amused. "Well, that sucks. I thought I'd get more entertainment out of your little family reunion." He tilted his head, strings of demonic energy rippling from his fingers. "Guess that means I have to fight for real now." Naruto's chest rose and fell, every breath ragged. Blood ran from his cuts, sweat mixed with tears, but his grip didn't falter. His storm still howled around him, restless, hungry. Then the cavern shook. Out of the corner of their eyes, the others saw it, an enormous shape unfurling above Naruto. A fox, but more storm than flesh, its body carved from lightning and wind, its eyes burning white-blue like suns. The air crackled with static, and each snap of its tail split the earth beneath them. The fox roared, and the entire cavern felt like it bowed under its presence. Sasori grinned wider, unfazed or pretending to be. He extended his hands, and dozens, then hundreds, of puppets flooded the battlefield. Hunters of every type and rank, their bodies twisted and rebuilt, their once proud weapons dangling like trophies. Their eyes were glass, their movements sharp and mechanical. A grotesque army of stolen legacies. "Do you recognize them?" Sasori asked mockingly. "All those hunters who died on missions you never even heard about. Their bodies serve me now. Their souls fuel my art." He lifted a finger and the puppets drew their blades, resonance flickering like dying candles. But Naruto wasn't listening. His eyes were locked on Sasori, pupils sharp with the storm. His grief burned through him, crystallized into one terrible clarity. Kurama's storm body lowered, tails wrapping around him, and Naruto stepped forward. With a resonant boom, he merged into it, his form swallowed whole by the raging fox. The cavern walls shook, sand blasting away as wind screamed and lightning clawed jagged lines into the rock. Water from the air condensed and swirled into rivers around him, feeding the beast. Kurama's eyes lit up, and when the fox opened its jaws, Naruto's voice came out echoing, layered, thunder itself speaking through him. "You desecrated my parents. You turned hunters into puppets. You think this is art?" His voice rumbled low, growing into a roar. "This is blasphemy." The fox lunged, storm claws ripping through the first wave of puppets, shredding them into kindling. Lightning arced from its tails, incinerating lines of them at once. Wind blades shredded the air, cutting faster than the eye could follow. Naruto's fury wasn't controlled anymore, it was primal, all-consuming, like the storm itself had been loosed upon the battlefield. For the first time, Sasori's smirk faltered. Deidara cackled from above, clay birds swarming through the air and raining explosions that lit up the sky in bursts of fire and smoke. Each detonation shook the battlefield, shards of rock and heat scattering as Sasuke darted below, his body blurring with the crackle of lightning along his skin. But even with his speed, he was slowing. His chest burned, his legs ached, and each near miss scraped him closer to the edge. His Sharingan spun, catching trajectories, but Deidara's birds were relentless. Sasuke grit his teeth, remembering Naruto's words about resonance, about pushing past limits. "Don't chain lightning. Let it flow. Ride it." He clenched his blade, calling forth his resonance. Flames spiraled, and above him the great black phoenix took form, wings wider than the battlefield, its body pulsing with living fire. Sasuke's body stung as the energy licked against him, burning as if his very blood protested. It was untested, dangerous. But there was no other way. With a roar, Sasuke merged with it. The phoenix wrapped around him, a cloak of fire and wings erupting from his back. He staggered once from the heat, but then he rose shooting into the skies like a blazing comet. Deidara's grin faltered. What the? Sasuke's eyes glowed red through the fire, his movements quicker, sharper. The phoenix shrieked, its cry shaking the heavens, and spewed fireballs that streaked through the air in violent arcs. They collided with Deidara's clay birds, fire swallowing fire, sparks cascading like meteors. For the first time, Deidara cursed and pulled higher into the sky, his hands weaving frantically to create more clay beasts. TCH. You think you can outfly me? I'm the MSTR of the skies. But Sasuke didn't answer. He was too busy becoming the flame itself, riding the storm of fire and lightning, his every movement a counter to Naruto's storm. The air was smoke and fire, explosions chaining across the battlefield as Deidara soared on his dragon of clay. Its wings beat like thunder, every gust carrying another volley of bombs that turned the sky into a storm of flame. Sasuke tore upward through the chaos, phoenix fire still burning around him, but even as he struck, he knew this wasn't enough. The clay dragon snarled, its body rippling with demonic energy, faster and stronger than the birds before. Deidara grinned, wild eyes wide with triumph. You're mine, Uchiha. You can't keep up here, you'll burn. Sasuke's chest heaved. His body screamed at him, torn by strain and fire. But his gaze sharpened. He hadn't come this far to fall now. There was still one call left in him. His phoenix screeched as though sensing his resolve, and with a roar, Sasuke let it go, dispersing the flames into sparks that faded against the ash-filled sky. Deidara's eyes went wide. What the hell he just? Sasuke fell, his body dropping like a stone. Wind tore at his cloak, flames gone, his blade flashing only with faint sparks of lightning. For a heartbeat it looked like suicide, like he'd abandoned the fight. Fine. Deidara bellowed from above, hurling his dragon down in pursuit. Then Dae. The clay dragon dove, its maw yawning wide, bombs swirling inside. The sky split with its roar. And then the world answered. A clap of thunder split the clouds. The storm itself bent, crackling into form. Out of the blinding light, it came, a dragon of lightning, massive and terrible, its body searing white-blue, its heads twin serpents of raw current. Its roar wasn't sound but the ripping of air, the shriek of lightning splitting the heavens. It caught Sasuke in its coils before he hit the ground, cradling him in the heart of its fury. His Sharingan glowed like molten rubies as he rose with it, his body sheathed in its storm. Deidara gaped, horror painted across his face. That's not possible. Sasuke's lips curled into the barest, tired smirk. His voice was raw but steady. Kirin. The twin-headed dragon surged, fangs of pure thunder snapping down as it launched itself skyward. The storm obeyed Sasuke like a living god, lightning striking, again and again, until the clay dragon shattered in the heavens, its pieces falling like ash. The battlefield went silent for a breath, save for the hiss of cooling air. In that moment, the lightning dragon gleamed brilliantly, terrible and appealing, its twin heads arching back with regal power. Sasuke gazed upward, chest aching, and whispered with pride that no one else could hear. Just like you, Mira. Deidara's face twisted as his clay dragon began to crumble, lightning tearing through its body. He realized it then, the storm wasn't his to command. It was Sasuke's. No, I won't lose to you, he shrieked, veins bulging as he shoved more clay into his mouth. His body swelled grotesquely, skin cracking with light. If I can't kill you from the sky, I'll take you with me. Art is an explosion. The words echoed as his form ballooned, a monstrous clay effigy of himself blooming in the heavens. Its grin was wide, hollow, and terrible. The air itself seemed to recoil as every ounce of demonic energy within him began to detonate. Sasuke's Sharingan widened. The lightning dragon still coiled around him, its fangs bared, but even it began to flicker and shatter under the raw force swelling above. He clenched his blade tighter, pushing every spark into the storm. Not yet, not like this. The dragon roared, wrapped tighter around him then broke. Shards of lightning split into the air, torn apart by the expanding shockwave. Then the world ended. A sun bloomed in the sky, a roaring white inferno swallowing earth and air alike. The sound came a moment later, deafening, tearing the ground into a crater and hurling storms of stone across the battlefield. Sasuke was flung like a ragdoll. Bones cracked under the sheer pressure, his body twisting as he was hurled through the air. His lungs emptied, blood flecking his lips, his vision blackening with the crushing weight of G-forces. He couldn't move. Couldn't even raise his blade. The dragon was gone. The fire was gone. All that was left was the freefall. For a fleeting instant, as the sky spun above him, he thought of Mira, her smile, her laugh, the way she called his name. A small, weary smirk tugged at his lips. Guess that's it. The darkness reached for him. And then the sand caught him. A swirl of golden grains wrapped around his limp body midair, slowing his fall, pulling him gently down. Through his fading vision he caught the silhouette of Temari, her fan wide, her resonance blazing as she screamed his name. Sasuke's last sight before the void claimed him was her, wings of sand spread like a shield against the sky's fire. And then he knew no more. Temari's fan shook in her grip, her eyes wet as Gaara's sand lashed at her again and again. Each cut stung, but not half as much as the sight of her brother lifeless, hollow, strings of sasseries while forcing his body like a puppet. She could end it. She could end him. Tears spilled down her cheeks as she whispered, I can't do it, Gaara. She dropped her guard, sand rushing in with crushing weight. She closed her eyes, bracing for it. But the sand softened. It wrapped around her gently, holding instead of crushing. Her eyes snapped open, and what she saw broke her. Gaara's corpse rigid, soulless had tears leaking down its face. Impossible. Puppets didn't cry. But she realized then, his resonance. His soul had only just left, his bond with her still clinging, still reaching. The last flicker of Gaara was there. Protecting her. Gaara, she whispered, voice trembling. And then she heard it, Sasuke's body tumbling from the heavens, limp, bones bent wrong. Her head whipped up, horror twisting her gut. Sasuke. She launched forward on the sand, flying faster than her fan could have carried her, her resonance straining until her veins burned. The sand rose like a great hand, cradling Sasuke before the ground could finish what Deidara's blast had started. Temari swooped in, catching his unconscious body against her chest. His pulse was faint. His skin burned. But he was alive. She staggered down with him, breath ragged, her limbs like lead. When her feet touched ground, Gaara's body shuddered then collapsed into the sand. His resonance was gone. The last flicker of her brother faded with the grains. No, she whispered, shaking, clutching Sasuke tighter. And then the world screamed. Flames surged across the battlefield, hotter than the sun, and from the inferno rose a fox, if it could even be called that. It towered, colossal, its body wreathed in rolling fire, 9 tails lashing with enough force to split mountains. Its bloodlust flooded the air, so sharp and heavy Temari could taste iron in her mouth. Opposite it, Sasori's masterpiece lurched into being, a grotesque colossus stitched from hunters and demons, fused into a parody of life. Its jaws gnashed, its body dripping corruption, puppet strings of black energy tethering it to Sasori's control. Temari stared, horror-stricken, as the monsters clashed, the fox's roar tearing the ground apart, the abomination of corpses answering in kind. Her knees buckled. She had nothing left. Sand wrapped faintly around her again, as if in comfort, but this time it had no strength. She collapsed beside Sasuke, unconsciousness dragging her under as the battlefield became hell itself. Kakashi's blade cleaved through the last of the Nuke-Nin, his wolf tearing the resonance apart until it dissolved into ash. Beside him, Sakura's roots snaked through the earth, binding the final puppet before her rabbit construct shattered it with a leafy kick. The battlefield quieted at least for a breath. Then the air changed. The pressure was suffocating, heavy enough to crush lungs. Both hunters froze as the ground beneath them trembled, heat rippling in waves that turned the sand to glass. They turned and what they saw made even veterans like them falter. Out of the carnage rose a fox, but no fox of flesh. This was fire given shape, a god of flame and fury. Its body blazed so brightly the desert itself glowed, molten rivers flowing in its wake. 9 tails whipped behind it, each one a pillar of fire capable of splitting the horizon. And it didn't stop there. The storm roared to answer it, lightning screaming from the skies, thunder splitting the heavens. Lava itself wrapped the fox like armor, rivers of molten stone fusing with fire until the beast was more volcano than animal, a living apocalypse. The heat distorted the air, bending light, making the giant's edges blur as if reality itself couldn't contain it. Sakura gasped, her voice breaking. Naruto. But Kakashi knew better. This wasn't just Naruto anymore. His resonance had spilled past human limits, burning and breaking through until something primal, something divine stood in his place. The grotesque colossus of corpses Sasori commanded shuddered in front of it. Its many jaws gnashed, arms stitched from dozens of hunters reaching for weapons, its hollow chest glowing with stolen resonance. And still, next to the fox, it looked small. The beast's molten claws dug into the sand, steam exploding as glass hissed beneath it. Its tails rose high, their weight cracking the dunes, and with a roar that was equal parts storm, fire, and earth, it charged. Sasori grinned like a madman, his threads snapping taut as the abomination lurched to meet it. The battlefield became a clash of gods. Sasori's strings cut through the sand, dragging more corpses from the earth. Hunters. Demons. Their bodies stitched and twisted into grotesque marionettes, lifeless eyes glowing with stolen resonance. They rushed Naruto in waves, blades flashing, claws raking. And Naruto erased them. Each one that came close was torn apart, disintegrated in the storm that writhed around his body. Lightning shredded their flesh, water ripped them apart, wind carved them into ribbons. His blade struck only when it had to, but even without moving, the storm was enough to consume them whole. They dissolved into ash before they could even scream. Sasori clicked his tongue, his smirk faltering for the first time as he tugged on more threads. Persistent little Stormbringer. But then his eyes caught the sky. High above, Deidara's last gambit lit the heavens in fire. The explosion painted the world white. When it faded, Sasuke was gone, his body swallowed by flame and smoke. Sasori grinned, sharp and cruel. One down. That was all it took. Naruto froze. His storm faltered, the wind dying in his ears. For a moment the battlefield went eerily quiet, the screams of puppets and the shrieks of thunder falling away. Sasuke. His brother. His rival. His friend. Dead. Something inside Naruto cracked. The entire day of torment, Gaara's corpse, his parents' puppets, the endless waves of death and mockery came crashing down. But Sasuke's fall, that was the final straw. His breath came ragged. His hands shook. And then he heard it. "Let me take care of this, kid." The voice wasn't his. It wasn't Kurama's either. It was something deeper, buried inside him, an ancient chord thrumming against his soul. And in that moment, Naruto didn't fight it. He didn't push back. He let go. The storm didn't roar this time. It screamed. Kurama's form swelled outward, massive tails thrashing, but it wasn't just lightning and water now. Something older, something divine, poured through Naruto's veins. Fire erupted from his core, white-hot, molten, too pure to belong to any human. Lava cascaded down his limbs, coating his body in molten armor, while the storm wrapped tighter, dragging heaven and earth into its maw. The fox was free. It stood towering, bigger than anything the battlefield had ever seen. Each step cracked the desert floor, rivers of molten rock spilling out. The sky itself bent, clouds boiling as lightning bent in worship. Its roar split the horizon, not an animal's cry, but something godlike, raw, primal, devastating. Sasori only laughed, even as the ground shook beneath him. Yes, yes. Show me. Show me your resonance. Give me that power. He pulled every string he had, his body trembling as the air filled with shrieking threads. Corpses poured toward him, not dozens, not hundreds, but thousands. Hunters, demons, remnants of ancient battles all bound together into a single monstrosity. A giant stitched of the dead, a grotesque titan of limbs and bone. Its chest pulsed with stolen resonance, its many mouths screamed in agony, its arms flailed with the strength of an army. It blotted out the moon itself, a god of corpses risen to challenge the fox. But even that was small. The flaming fox reared back, its tail slamming the earth with the force of falling meteors. The molten armor blazed hotter, brighter, until it looked less like a beast and more like a sun-given shape. It stepped forward once, and the corpse giant stumbled back. For the first time in his long, twisted life, Sasori's grin faltered. The corpse colossus lurched forward, a mountain of stitched flesh and demon bone, its 1,000 mouths screaming as one. Each swing of its arms shattered dunes and caved stone, the weight of an army compressed into one grotesque form. But the fox didn't flinch. Naruto's eyes burned through the veil of fire and storm, his body somewhere deep within the inferno, yet his will shaping the beast. The fox moved with impossible speed for its size, lava armor grinding, tails whipping like falling meteors. When its paw came down, the corpse giant tried to block with hundreds of flailing arms. They snapped like twigs. The battlefield shook. Sand blew away in sheets. The fox lunged again, its jaws snapping shut around one of the giant's torsos. With a sound like tearing canvas, it ripped through, molten fangs shredding hunters and demons that had once been warriors. The resonance stitched into them sputtered and died as their bodies dissolved in the storm's fury. Sasori yanked his strings wildly, trying to reform them, trying to stitch them back together. Dance, DMNU, he snarled, threads glowing red. But the fox's tails whipped out in a storm of thunder. Lightning carved through the threads, severing them faster than Sasori could reattach. Each lash burned swathes of corpses to cinders, their stolen resonance scattering like sparks. The giant swung back, desperate, smashing its massive fist into the fox's flank. Lava splattered, wind shrieked, and the air itself cracked with the impact. For a second, the titan of corpses roared in triumph. Then the fox turned its head. Fire bled through its teeth, molten veins glowing like rivers of hellfire, and with one roar it unleashed the storm. Lightning, wind, and flame erupted in a cone of annihilation, a beam that tore the corpse giant in half from head to toe. The scream of thousands of souls echoed across the desert, shrill, agonized, then cut short as their forms were incinerated. What hit the ground wasn't bodies, but ash. The fox loomed in the silence that followed, its eyes burning like suns, tails thrashing. Sasori staggered backward, his puppets falling useless around him. For once, the MSTR of strings had nothing left to pull. The fight hadn't even lasted minutes. It wasn't a battle. It was judgment. The battlefield was silent, save for the hiss of cooling ash. Where once 1,000 bodies had stood, there was nothing but a smoking crater, glassed and charred by divine fire. The fox loomed over it all, lava bleeding down its flanks, thunder still growling in its chest. Each breath it took shook the desert, the weight of something too vast to be called human pressing down on everything in sight. Sasori stumbled back, his puppet slack, his thread severed. His hands shook not from exhaustion, but awe. He had wanted the Stormbringer's power, had pried open scars and corpses to break him. He had succeeded. But what stood before him was not a broken boy. It was a god. The fox's gaze burned into him, eyes like suns, and the heat seared his skin before the flames even touched him. Sasori felt his body coming apart, resonance unraveling. His lips moved, almost reverent. The presence it's appealing, Then he was ash, scattered on the storm's breath, gone before the echo of his words even faded. The storm finally fell silent. The fox dissolved in a shudder of fire and smoke, leaving nothing but scorched glass where Sasori's grotesque army had stood. And at the center of it all, Naruto collapsed. His cloak shattered, resonance drained, his body trembling and broken. He fell hard, but didn't hit the ground. Kakashi caught him, one arm hooked beneath his shoulders. The boy's weight was heavier than it should have been, not in mass, but in the toll of what he had unleashed. "Easy," Kakashi murmured, though his own chest heaved with fatigue. Sakura staggered toward him, her body smeared with blood and dust, Temari limp in her arms. Beside her, Sasuke hung unconscious, his burns still smoking faintly from Deidara's blast. She gritted her teeth but refused to stumble. Kakashi looked at all of them, their team broken and battered, but alive. The sand around them was still trembling with residual heat, the faint crackle of fading resonance humming in the air. He exhaled slowly, tiredly, his mask damp with sweat. "Let's go home," he said. No one argued. The wind howled across the dunes, dragging sand over the battlefield until the blood and ash were gone. Kakashi led the march, his movements slow and heavy, Naruto's unconscious body slung over his shoulder. Sakura followed, clutching Sasuke close, his skin still burned and pale. Temari walked behind them, her eyes never leaving the figure of Gaara's body, suspended by gentle ribbons of sand that trembled but refused to let him fall. They had come to save him. They had failed. The sand shinobi didn't curse them, didn't rage. They simply bowed their heads and helped carry what was left. For the first time in their careers, Team 7 had failed a mission and no one could find the words to blame them. Naruto stirred once, eyes half open, whispering something that sounded like a name but it wasn't clear whose. Then he went still again, a faint heat still radiating from his skin. Kakashi looked back at him, eyes narrowing behind the mask. Whatever he had unleashed out there, it wasn't the same boy who had left Konoha. The desert swallowed their footsteps as they vanished into the dying light. The storm was over. But something darker had awakened. Elder Chiyo stepped forward, her old bones creaking, yet her eyes were steady as she looked at the fallen Kazekage. "Thank you. Even so, with 2 more Akatsuki gone, their plans will falter." At least, her voice wavered, just for a heartbeat. At least Gaara didn't die in vain. Kakashi nodded, his single visible eye soft. "We'll make sure of that." He glanced at his team, their bodies battered, their spirits even more so. "I've got to get these kids back to the Leaf." But as they began the slow march through the dunes, his thoughts wouldn't quiet. He'd seen Naruto snap, saw the way his resonance twisted, the storm turning black, not the vivid blue and gold of before. That wasn't Naruto's aura. It was something older, darker. Jiraiya had once warned him that Naruto's resonance was unique, raw, unstable, maybe even divine in scale, but this was something else. When Kakashi had opened his eyes after the fight, he hadn't seen blue. He'd seen red, flecked with molten gold, like the embers of a dying sun. He didn't know if those eyes would ever go back to normal. The kid had mutilated his own parents' corpses during the mission. Seen his brother fall. Watched a friend die. By all rights, Naruto should have broken long ago. And yet he kept standing, though Kakashi couldn't tell if it was strength or denial holding him together anymore. He looked at Sakura, pale and silent, cradling Sasuke's unconscious body. He looked at Temari walking beside Gaara's lifeless form. Hunters, all of them. But still human. Still fragile. "Rumi," Naruto mumbled weakly in his sleep, voice cracked but soft. "I'm coming." Kakashi sighed, his chest tightening. "Let's hope so, kid," he murmured, adjusting his hold. Because without that girl, without that anchor, he didn't know what would happen to Naruto Uzumaki. And for the first time, he wasn't sure he wanted to find out. Tsunade looked over Celine's unconscious form, her tone grim. "She won't die, but she's not waking up anytime soon." Jiraiya exhaled heavily, the sound somewhere between a sigh and a growl. Then we need answers. Why was Orochimaru even there, and what's his connection to Selene and Rumi? Tsunade ran a diagnostic, her golden resonance cloaking Selene in soft light. The chakra-like energy rippled gently, tracing over every wound and nerve. He used a poison, she muttered, her brows furrowed. Not to kill her, just to keep her under. There must have been a reason he was here. Jiraiya stood beside her, his usual grin long gone. His gaze softened as he looked down at Selene, the fierce woman who'd always seemed unshakable, the one who'd helped raise the Hunter-X girls and watched over Naruto when his parents died. Then realization hit him. His stomach dropped. Tsunade, he said slowly, what if this wasn't about her at all? Orochimaru plays games, he tests Naruto, tries to get a rise out of him. What if this is just another one of his tricks? A way to bait the kid? Tsunade's frown deepened. Naruto's in the States. He's working with the Sand to retrieve their Kazekage from the Akatsuki. Jiraiya dragged a hand through his hair, frustration bleeding into his voice. Then what the hell is he playing at? The silence that followed was heavy. Even the hum of Selene's resonance seemed to still, like the room itself was holding its breath. Tsunade's eyes stayed on the golden light surrounding Selene. The glow flickered faintly, like it was struggling to hold. If this wasn't just about Selene, she said softly, then the only other tie he could have here is Rumi. Jiraiya turned toward her, frowning. Rumi? She's a singer, not a hunter. What would Orochimaru want with her? Tsunade didn't answer immediately. Her gaze hardened, gold eyes meeting his with the weight of unspoken theories. Selene's always been protective of her. Too protective, even for her. You ever notice that? She trained the girls, but Rumi, she guarded her. Kept her out of the hunter corps, away from missions, from the organizations. Almost like she was hiding her from something. Jiraiya folded his arms, thinking. You think Orochimaru's connection to Selene might run deeper than we thought? That maybe Rumi's involved somehow? Tsunade's expression darkened. If she is, she doesn't know it. And I don't think Selene ever planned to tell her. Jiraiya looked back down at the unconscious woman, the gold aura still flickering weakly around her. Then let's just hope we can get those answers before Orochimaru decides to collect whatever debt he thinks he's owed. Tsunade nodded grimly, dismissing her resonance and straightening. Get a message to Naruto when you can. If Orochimaru's after Rumi, he'll find out soon enough. And when he does. Her voice trailed off. They both knew what she meant. Naruto wouldn't stop. He'd burn the world to protect her. The doors slammed open, and the entire hallway shook. Lady Tsunade, an orderly yelled over the rising hum. He started an hour ago, his resonances going wild. The whole wings. A thunderous crack cut him off. The floor beneath them vibrated. Tsunade didn't wait to hear more. She sprinted, Jiraiya right behind her, the medic barely able to keep his footing as the resonance pulsed through the hospital like a heartbeat. The closer they got, the heavier the air became, humid, electric, alive. When they turned the corner, the corridor ahead glowed an eerie blue-white. Bolts of lightning flickered behind the frosted glass of the resonance chamber, followed by the sharp ring of shattering instruments. Then the roof split. The tiles buckled upward with a sound like thunder, light streaming through the cracks as if the heavens themselves were bleeding lightning. The walls wept condensation, water running in steady rivulets down the plaster. The smell of ozone and iron filled the air. Gods above, Jiraiya muttered. He's rewriting the atmosphere. Tsunade shoved the door open and nearly got blown off her feet. A cyclone ripped through the room, spinning around the bed in violent circles. Papers, glass, entire medical trays whirled in the air like leaves. At the center was Naruto. He was half off the bed, restraints glowing white-hot, his body convulsing as arcs of lightning crawled across his skin. Every exhale came out as wind, raw, cutting wind that howled through the chamber. His sweat turned instantly to vapor. His resonance is destabilizing across all three elements, the medic screamed. Wind, lightning, and water are overlapping. Get out. Tsunade roared. Everyone out now. Her. Golden resonance erupted from her palms, anchoring her to the floor as she pushed forward through the gale. Naruto. You're safe. Breathe, it. But he didn't hear her. His body arched again and the restraints shattered. Metal fragments shot like bullets into the walls. That's when Jiraiya stepped forward. His aura flared, massive, the weight of a sage filling the room. The floor cracked under the pressure. The storm stuttered just for an instant. And then Naruto's eyes opened. They weren't blue. Not anymore. They glowed red, faint gold flecks sparking within. The storm roared back to life, doubling in force. Lightning struck the floor where Jiraiya stood, hurling him across the room and into the wall hard enough to crack the concrete. Tsunade, he coughed, pushing himself up, BLD at the corner of his mouth. That wasn't resistance. That was rejection. Tsunade tried again, summoning a massive seal circle beneath the bed. Her golden light met the storm then burst apart like glass. The backlash sent cracked spiderwebbing through the roof. Shingles rained down outside as thunder rattled the entire hospital. Naruto gasped, his body glowing with eerie light. The black curse marks along his skin flared crimson then burned away, dissolving into golden steam that left faint shimmering veins where they once were. His marks they're gone, one medic cried from the hallway. He's burning them out. Jiraiya forced himself upright, his aura blazing white-blue. He's not purging it, he's consuming it. Tsunade clenched her fists. Then he's killing himself doing it. Naruto's chest heaved. The water on the floor rippled upward, drawn into the storm's orbit. The wind screamed. The walls bowed inward. Then he whispered. Rumi. The storm paused, just for a heartbeat, at that single word. Tsunade seized the moment, slamming her hand to the ground. Golden sealing runes flared through the room, forming a glowing barrier around the bed. Now, Jiraiya. Anchor it. He joined her, their combined energy pressing down, trying to cage the impossible. The building shook, cracks spiderwebbing up the walls, a low groan echoing through the foundation. The resonance surged one last time then imploded inward. Everything went still. The light faded. Steam hissed faintly from Naruto's skin. The marks were gone. His body was limp, his breathing shallow but steady. Tsunade checked his pulse, her voice trembling. He's alive but, she looked up, her golden aura flickering. Whatever that was, it wasn't just him. Jiraiya stared at the fractured ceiling, at the lingering spark of gold still burning faintly above the bed. No, he said softly. It was something inside him. And it's awake now. The storm stretched forever. Lightning split the horizon, wind tearing in spirals so huge they swallowed entire oceans. The roar wasn't sound anymore but a pressure that lived inside his skull. The whirlpool had merged with the storm here, a hurricane so vast the eye alone could have held a city. Water arced upward into columns, lightning rode its currents, and the whole world felt tilted on its axis. Naruto stood at the center. The ground beneath him didn't exist, only shifting waves of light and water and wind. But it didn't hurt him. It licked at his skin, climbed his legs, whispered at his ears. It was power without limit, and it was also empty. He turned his head and saw them. His parents. Not smiling. Not warm. Not arms outstretched. Corpses. Pale, stitched, hollow-eyed. Their bodies still bearing the marks from when he'd cut them down with his own blades. Naruto's stomach lurched. He fell to his knees, but the storm caught him, keeping him upright like hands under his shoulders. Tears blurred his vision. Sasuke was gone, the image of him swallowed by Deidara's blast replayed behind Naruto's eyes. His brother in everything but BLD, gone. Gaara, dead. His parents reduced to puppets and forced to fight him. He clutched at his hair, teeth gritted. I'm so tired, his voice cracked, barely audible over the hurricane. I'm so tired of being strong. The storm around him flared, as if it could feel the words. The lightning grew redder, the water darker, wind keening like a chorus of lost souls. It wasn't attacking him, but it wasn't under his control either. It was simply there, a living thing wrapped around his heartbeat, feeding off his grief. He squeezed his eyes shut, chest heaving. Sasuke, mom, dad, he shook his head, voice breaking. I didn't want this. I didn't want any of this. Another gust tore past, louder than before, carrying the scent of scorched earth and salt tears. It howled like Kurama's roar but older, deeper, a sound that belonged to something that had been waiting in him for years. The center of the storm rippled. Shapes moved within the lightning. For a heartbeat, he thought he saw his parents again, reaching out. Then the images dissolved into spray. Naruto stayed kneeling, fists pressed to the knot ground, eyes closed, trembling but not breaking. The storm bent around him, like a god's cloak around a tired soldier. And at the very edge of his consciousness, a voice he didn't recognize whispered low, patient, ancient. You don't have to hold it back, child. Not here. The storm hissed. The voice was gone. Naruto's eyes opened. The hurricane raged on. His tears dripped into the lightning and turned into sparks. I just want to go home, he whispered. The storm didn't answer. The storm screamed. Lightning fractured the heavens, sheets of rain vaporized midair, and the hurricane folded in on itself, not shrinking, but tightening, a noose of raw power. Naruto stood at the center, chest heaving, soaked in light. The air was alive with voices. One voice, soft and serpentine, slid through the thunder. You're tired, aren't you? Always fighting, always breaking yourself for others. Naruto froze. The tone was smooth, familiar. The storm dimmed slightly as if the words coiled around its heart. You don't have to keep doing this, the whisper murmured, weaving between raindrops. Be free, child. Be like me. Be a demon. No more pain, no more loss. Just power. Just peace. He turned and saw it. The black mark pulsed at his side, the last shadow of the curse, taking shape. It spread upward, forming eyes yellow, reptilian, merciless. Orochimaru's smile bloomed in the lightning. Naruto's breath caught. The storm stilled for one heartbeat. Then he felt at the mark reaching for him, its tendrils brushing against his spirit. Every ache in his body dulled, every fear eased. It felt warm. Tempting. Easy. Maybe it would be easier to stop fighting. To let it win. Maybe. No. His eyes snapped open. He could see it now, all of it, the puppet strings, the manipulation, the pain Orochimaru had left behind. His parents' bodies. Sasuke's fall. The mark on his skin. Everything that had ever twisted him came back to that monster. Rage surged. The storm shifted color, blue lightning turning white gold. The whirlpool flared around him, no longer chaotic but furious. The wind howled with him. It's your fault. Naruto's voice cracked through the thunder, the words echoed by the storm itself. All of it. You took everything. My parents, my peace, my life, everything. The yellow eyes blinked. Orochimaru's voice hissed again, faint but mocking. You can't escape what you are, child. Naruto's aura blazed like a sunburst. Then I'll burn it out. The curse mark tried to slither away, deeper into his soul, black smoke scattering like serpents. But the storm moved with him. It wrapped around his body, crackling, coiling, and then struck tendrils of lightning diving into the dark. The hurricane roared, and the mark screamed. The ground split beneath him. The mark writhed, melting under the pressure of the storm, its last whispers shrieking through the wind. "You'll regret this." "No." Naruto roared, every ounce of resonance in his body exploding outward. The storm answered, its sound beyond thunder, the cry of something divine and furious. The black tendrils shattered, burned to gold, and vanished into the ether. When the light faded, Naruto stood trembling in the eye of the storm, his chest glowing faintly where the curse mark had been no longer black, but a scar of pure light. The wind quieted, bowing around him like a faithful beast. For the first time, the storm was his. Naruto fell to his knees, gasping, the rain hissing to steam around him. He whispered through his teeth, voice raw but defiant. "You don't own me, Orochimaru. Not anymore." And in answer, the storm purred not rage now, but loyalty. The world folded in on itself long before anyone noticed. It wasn't silence, it was attention. The kind of stillness that comes when something ancient leans close to listen. And in that stillness, beneath the roar of lightning and the howl of shattered wind, a god remembered his name. Miruk had slept for ages in the quietest part of creation. Once, he had been a sun, a bringer of light and order, a god who loved too much. But love is what breaks first. When humanity turned from him, when his rival Suk painted false dawns and hollow promises, Miruk's radiance collapsed inward. His light, once gentle, became hunger. His warmth turned grief. His divinity inverted, forming a gravity so dense it devoured itself. That was the day the sun became a black hole. Now, he stirred not in heaven, not in myth, but in a boy's broken heart. Naruto lay lost in his own storm, trapped in the hurricane of his grief. He saw his parents again and again, their corpses moved like puppets, their eyes empty, their warmth gone. He'd killed them with his own hands to stop their desecration. He saw Sasuke fall in flames. He heard the laughter of monsters who turned love into torment. And somewhere deep in the eye of that storm, a presence opened its eyes. Miruk did not watch from afar this time. He was the lightning. He was the water boiling under Naruto's skin. He had been there from the beginning, scattered fragments of godhood waiting to remember themselves. He felt the boy's sorrow and saw himself reflected, a god and a child, both betrayed by the world they had tried to save. "Oh, child," Miruk whispered, and his voice moved through the storm like an old song half remembered. The thunder dimmed to listen. "How long have you carried this? How long have you bled for those who would never understand?" Naruto trembled. The black curse marks crawled along his arms, pulsing with Orochimaru's hatred, whispering, "Give in. Rest. Be nothing." The storm darkened. Lightning faltered. Then the air itself shivered. From within Naruto's soul, something vast and ancient unfurled. Not a demon. Not resonance. Divinity. Miruk's presence filled the void like sunrise over ruin. His words resonated through every drop of rain, through the veins of the storm. "I know this pain. The world I made broke me too." Naruto's breath hitched, his body arching as divine energy coursed through him. Miruk raised his hand unseen, but felt. It was not a hand of flesh, but of light so heavy it bent reality. It passed through Naruto's chest, reached deep into his soul, and found the curse. The black seal writhed like a serpent, hissing, coiling, desperate to survive. It was Orochimaru's hunger made flesh, and it recognized the touch that had come for it. "No more chains," Miruk said, his tone neither cruel nor kind. "You have burned long enough." The storm responded like a choir. Wind howled. Water turned to mist. Lightning roared in rhythm to his words. The divine hand clenched, and the curse marks screamed. They burned from black to red, from red to gold, and finally white. Then nothing. The serpent's hiss was replaced by the wail of something ending, something ancient and unclean being erased by a holiness older than heaven. Outside, in the hospital, Tsunade and Jiraiya saw only chaos, the roof cracking, walls bowing from the unseen pressure. Instruments shattered. The air buzzed with static so thick it hummed. Jiraiya tried to suppress it, pouring his resonance outward like a dam only to be flung into the wall, his bones aching with the weight of divinity pressing down. What the hell, he gasped. Tsunade's gold aura barely held. It's not resonance, she whispered. It's something else. Inside Naruto's storm, Miruk stood fully now. Not in body, but in presence taller than mountains, eyes like eclipsed suns, robes made of folded space. His hand rested against the last fading ember of the curse. He didn't smile. Gods rarely do. You are like me, he told the sleeping boy. You gave everything to save them, and they called you monster. You carried the fire, and they cursed you for the light. The storm dimmed around him, all fury drawn into awe. Rest now, little son, he whispered. I will take the pain. I will carry it. And when I rise from you, I will make sure this world can never hurt you again. Lightning flared, striking inward instead of outward. The cursed sigils vanished completely, reduced to motes of ash that fell away like dying stars. Naruto's body relaxed, chest rising softly for the first time in hours. Miruk lingered one heartbeat longer, looking through the boy's eyes at the fragile world that had broken them both. He didn't hate it. Hate was too small. What he felt was pity. The world made you into a storm, he murmured, as his hand faded into wind. When I wake, I will end the storm for good. And then the god withdrew. The storm softened to a whisper. The lightning dimmed. Naruto's body went still. Outside, Tsunade and Jiraiya rushed forward as the pressure lifted. The boy's vitals stabilized. The curse marks were gone, burned out completely as if by a hand that had rewritten the laws of life and death. But in the air lingered a taste neither of them could name, something divine, ancient, sorrowful. Deep within Naruto's soul, beneath the silence of his dreams, a voice spoke one last time soft as rain, heavy as prophecy. Sleep, child. When you wake, I will be closer. Rumi stood on the rooftop of the Hunt Rex tower, phone pressed to her ear, heart hammering. Naruto wasn't answering. He always answered. The city below blurred into a haze of neon and cold wind. She tried again, nothing. The air felt wrong, heavy, the kind of pressure that makes your skin crawl before your mind understands why. A sound behind her, too soft to be footsteps. She spun, her soul blade blooming into her hand with a violet glow. A tall figure stood at the edge of the roof, cloak stirring like a living thing. His eyes caught the light yellow, predatory, and every instinct in her screamed danger. Who are you? She demanded, her voice sharp. What do you want? The man stepped closer, smiling thinly. You look just like her, he said. Ryu's child. Same eyes. Same defiance. Rumi's grip tightened. You knew my mother. His smile widened, but there was no warmth in it. Knew her. I owned her. Loved her, in the way one loves a good hound. Loyal. Useful. But a dog is still a dog, and in the end, she had to be put down. Rumi's pulse spiked. Shut up, she hissed, but he kept talking, voice low and steady. Each word a knife. You don't even see it yet, do you? The purple patterns you try to hide. The strength that feels like it doesn't belong to you. You're mine. You're not a hunter's daughter. You're the spawn of the monster who took everything from that boy you're so desperate to protect. Rumi's knuckles whitened on her blade. You're lying. I marked him, the man said, eyes glinting. I killed his parents. Every ounce of pain, rage, and power that shaped him came from me. And now he thinks he loves you. But what do you think he'll do when he finds out who you really are? When he sees my BLD staring back at him from your skin? The rooftop tilted beneath her. She tried to raise her sword, but her resonance flared violently on its own, purple light crawling up her arms, reacting to his presence. He took another step forward, speaking softly, almost kindly, like a snake coiling closer. You and I are the same, Rumi. You're not his salvation. You're my legacy. You can play at being different, but BLD always wins. Sooner or later, you'll understand. Rumi lunged, swinging her blade with a scream, but the rooftop split only air. The man's body dissolved like smoke, his voice sliding around her from every shadow. He'll find out, he whispered. And when he does, will he still hold you, or will he cut you down like any other demon? Her heart lurched, horror and rage twisting together. She slashed again and again, but he was gone. Only his words remained, curling like venom into her ears. You're mine, little serpent. Whether you like it or not. Silence fell. The city lights buzzed faintly below. Rumi stood trembling, her blade flickering out as the purple patterns burned across her arms. She sank to her knees, clutching her chest, breath ragged. She whispered into the wind, a plea she didn't even know she'd spoken. Please don't let it be true. Naruto. The rooftop gave no answer. Somewhere far away, in a hospital room, the storm inside Naruto shuddered as if it had heard her voice. Sasuke lay on his back staring at the ceiling, the antiseptic smell of the hospital sharp in his nose, the hum of machines steady like a metronome. His body ached with every breath, but it was the stillness that made him feel like he might splinter apart. Even in sleep his brow furrowed, and now that his eyes were open, the shadows of his thoughts pressed down harder than any wound. He had done it. He had stood alone against an Akatsuki and lived. For a moment on that battlefield he had felt the edge of the power he'd been chasing since childhood. The phoenix, the dragon, all of it meant he was closer now. Closer to the one thing that had driven him through every night of training, every scar, Itachi. But as the fire that usually filled him smoldered, another thought crept in, small and cold. Naruto. His brother in all but BLD. The idiot, the anchor, the one who had been there when no one else was. Did Naruto even need him anymore? He had Rumi now. He had a team. He had become stronger than anyone expected. If Sasuke died chasing his revenge, would Naruto mourn him for more than a week? A month? Or would he grit his teeth and move forward again like he always had, because Naruto had already lost so much? Sakura would be fine. She had Lee now steady, fierce, always reaching for her hand. Kakashi would bury another loss under another mission, another lazy joke, another unread book. They would grieve, and then they would live. That was not comfort. It was a verdict. The only person he would truly be leaving behind was Mira. Gods, Mira. Her name flickered through his mind like a spark. He saw her smile, the way she teased him, the way she steadied him without even trying. He loved her. He loved her so much it scared him. She was the one person who made him feel like maybe, just maybe, he could be more than a weapon. But how could he even think about happiness while Itachi still walked the earth? How could he lie in her arms knowing his brother still breathed? His fingers curled into the sheets until his knuckles whitened. He thought of the fight with Deidara, of falling through the sky wrapped in lightning, of Naruto burning himself down to protect everyone. Naruto needed him, or maybe he didn't. Maybe no one did. Maybe he was already a ghost in their story, waiting to fade. He exhaled slowly, letting the ache in his ribs root him to the present. He had chosen this path long before anyone called it destiny. He had chosen pain because he thought it would buy something back that had been stolen. It wasn't about honor or glory. It was about stopping the one man who had turned his life into a lesson in absence. If he didn't strike now, he might lose more than he already had, he might lose the last thin threads that still tied him to being human. So he made the plan in silence. Heal fast. Find Mira. Let her see him whole, not perfect, not unbroken, but present. Hold her for a single night of ordinary warmth. Carry her laugh with him into the dark. Then go. Finish what had to be finished before the world chewed him up and spat him out again. He rose from the bed on shaky legs and breathed in as if to taste the resolution. He was as ready as he would ever be. Embrace it, he told himself without flinching. Embrace the thing you are best at and use it to end the thing that stole everything. Outside, the hospital was quiet. Inside, Sasuke's heart felt like a blade being drawn. He was a hunter, but he was also a man. And for a heartbeat, he let himself imagine Myra's face before he closed his eyes and set his jaw. Tomorrow he would start moving again. Tomorrow he would be ready. The Huntrix lounge was silent except for the faint hum of city lights bleeding through the glass. Kakashi stood in the center of the room, his coat still stained with ash and rain. The girls had gathered the moment he'd walked in, hope flickering in their eyes. That hope didn't last long. Gaara's gone, he said quietly. Zoe's smile froze before her lip trembled. What do you mean gone? They did everything they could, Kakashi continued, voice steady but low. But the Akatsuki got to him first. Zoe broke. Her sobs tore through the stillness like a wound opening. Mira caught her before she fell, holding her tight as Rumi just stared stunned, unmoving, the words not yet sinking in. Kakashi took a breath, his gaze dropping. That's not all. The air grew heavier. Sasuke's alive, he said finally. Barely. He was caught in an explosion, bones broken, burns across his body. It'll take time, but Tsunade says he'll recover. No scars, but it was close. Myra's eyes went wide. He's going to be okay. Kakashi nodded, a faint smile under the mask. He's tough. You know how stubborn he is. He'll complain about the hospital food before he even walks again. She laughed weakly, a broken sound that melted into tears. That sounds like him. Zoe sniffled, still clutching Myra's sleeve. He'll be okay, she whispered to herself. Kakashi's tone shifted again, softer now, more careful. Naruto, he stopped, trying to find the words. He's alive. But it's bad. Rumi looked up sharply. How bad? Bad enough that the medics can't touch him. His resonance is rejecting any healing. His body's burning it off like it doesn't trust anyone near him. Kakashi's eye darkened. The curse mark's gone, but it wasn't gentle. It's like he forced it out himself. Rumi's chest tightened. And his mind? Kakashi hesitated. He saw things no one should have to see. A demon made him fight his parents, their corpses. He swallowed hard. He killed them to survive. I think something inside him broke that day. Rumi's breath hitched. Zoe's sobs started again, soft and uncontrollable, while Mira just shook her head in disbelief. He's going to need time, Kakashi said quietly. And someone to remind him who he is. Zoe clung to Mira, her voice trembling. I can't lose him too. Mira rubbed her back, eyes glassy but calm. We're not going to. He's Naruto. He's stronger than anyone I know. Kakashi nodded, glancing at them both. He'll pull through. But for now, he needs rest. Rumi barely heard them. Her mind was spinning, a storm behind her eyes. A demon made him fight his parents. Her stomach turned. Orochimaru killed them. Orochimaru marked him. And now she, his daughter, was about to walk into his hospital room. Orochimaru's words whispered again, cold and slick like venom. He may act like he loves you now, but what happens when he finds out what you really are? You're my child, Rumi. That BLD never lies. She pressed a trembling hand to her mouth. Would he see her and think of the monster who destroyed his life? Mira looked up at her from Zoe's side. Rumi, are you okay? Rumi blinked, forcing a small, brittle smile. Yeah, she lied. Just gonna go see him. Kakashi nodded, quietly stepping aside. He's at the Leaf Hospital. Tsunade's with him. Go. Rumi hesitated just for a heartbeat, then turned for the door. Her braids swung with every step, her heart pounding in her chest. Mira held Zoe close, whispering something soft. Kakashi stood in the doorway, watching Rumi disappear into the elevator, his expression unreadable. And as the doors closed, one thought weighed on her more than anything Orochimaru ever said. When he finds out the truth, will he still love me? The apartment felt emptier without Rumi. The sound of the elevator doors closing had faded, leaving only Zoe's muffled sobs and the quiet hum of the neon lights outside. Zoe sat curled up on the couch, face buried in her knees. Her shoulders shook as she tried to breathe between sobs. Mira sat beside her, one hand gently rubbing her back, but even she looked lost, exhausted eyes, voice small and trembling. She tried so hard, Zoe whispered between hiccups. They all did. And it still wasn't enough. I know, Mira said softly. They brought him back though. That has to count for something. Zoe didn't answer. Her tears started again, and Mira just sighed, pulling her closer. The door creaked open, and Bobby appeared, hair messy, still in his studio clothes, eyes wide with worry. I heard, he said quietly. The interviews can wait. He looked at the two of them, the tension in his shoulders easing into something protective. Without another word, he disappeared down the hall. Mira frowned. Where are you? 5 minutes later, Bobby came back, arms overloaded, blankets spilling out of his grip, a ridiculous mountain of ice cream pints stacked on top, and a box of tissues balanced precariously between them. Zoe blinked through her tears. Bobby, what are you? Emergency protocol, he said matter-of-factly, dropping the pile in front of the couch. Blankets, ice cream, and emotional triage. We ride this out together. Mira couldn't help it, she let out a soft laugh, weak but real. Zoe sniffled and wiped her eyes, managing a small, watery smile. Bobby sat between them, draping a blanket over Zoe's shoulders and handing Mira a spoon. First rule, he said, scooping out a massive bite of ice cream. No one cries alone tonight. Zoe let out a shaky breath, taking a spoonful of her own. He was going to come visit, she whispered. Said he wanted to see the studio. Bobby leaned his head gently against hers. He still would've, he said quietly. You know Gaara. Stubborn as hell. He wouldn't want you sitting here crying forever. Mira nodded, adding softly, he'd want you to keep shining. Zoe sniffed again, holding the spoon halfway between her fingers. It just hurts so much, she murmured. I know, Bobby said, voice almost breaking. But that's how you know it mattered. For a long time, the three of them sat together in the soft glow of the living room lights, wrapped in blankets and silence. Zoe's sobs slowly faded into uneven breaths. Mira leaned back against the couch, finally letting her own tears fall. Bobby didn't say anything else. He just stayed there, their quiet anchor in a world that felt like it was cracking. Outside, the city lights flickered. Inside, surrounded by blankets and ice cream, they let themselves grieve. The hospital had gone quiet hours ago. Even the hum of the lights seemed to fade whenever someone stepped into that room. Naruto lay motionless under the soft white sheets, his chest rising and falling in shallow, steady rhythm. His resonance was still active, but it wasn't wild anymore, it had form. 3 foxes circled his bed, each one translucent, shifting constantly between the states of matter that made them up. One of rippling water, sleek and fluid. One of whispering wind, its shape made of soft blue currents that shimmered with motion. And one of crackling electricity, its body traced in arcs of pure light. They moved in silence, padding over the tiled floor without sound, tails flicking in slow, hypnotic rhythm. The resonance around them pulsed faintly with every step, as if the whole room moved to their heartbeat. Every time a medic came too close, one of the foxes would turn, eyes glowing, ears flicking, and the air would crack sharply, lightning crawling up the walls in warning. Not an attack. Just a command, stay back. It had been going on for hours. Tsunade stood in the corner, arms crossed but face tight with worry. It's guarding him. They're guarding him. Jiraiya nodded slowly, his voice low. You can feel it, they're part of him. Manifestations of his resonance, maybe? Or protectors drawn out of it. He took a half-step closer to test his theory. The wind kitsune instantly turned, its tails flaring. A gust of air snapped through the room, knocking his hair back and sending papers flying. Jiraiya held up his hands and backed away. Right. Definitely guarding him. The door opened quietly behind them. Rumi stepped in. Her eyes were swollen from crying, her steps hesitant but determined. The moment she entered, the three foxes turned toward her in perfect unison, not with hostility, but curiosity. Tsunade started to warn her, careful, Rumi. But before she could finish, the foxes moved. The wind one padded closer first, circling her once. The water fox followed, its body glimmering in fluid waves that reflected the light. The lightning fox flickered, appearing at her side in a flash of soft blue. Then, as one, they lowered their heads. The sound that came from them wasn't a growl or a rumble. It was a purr, a low, harmonic vibration that resonated through the walls like the hum of a temple bell. The light stopped flickering. The air warmed. Rumi exhaled shakily, her eyes wide. You know me. She stepped forward, and none of them moved to stop her. Instead, the foxes fell into formation, one on each side, one behind, escorting her to the bed as if she were part of them, as if she belonged there. When she reached Naruto, she hesitated, then brushed her fingers over his cheek. His body relaxed instantly. The air that had been charged and heavy now felt calm, almost sacred. The foxes all lay down, curling at the edges of the bed like sentinels finally allowed to rest. Tsunade whispered, almost reverently, his resonance, it recognizes her. Jiraiya nodded. It's not protecting him from her. It's protecting her with him. Rumi felt tears rise in her eyes. She stroked his hair, her voice barely audible. You big idiot. Always scaring everyone, even when you're asleep. The lightning fox lifted its head slightly, its eyes glowing with the same gentle gold that once lived in Naruto's. It purred again, and the sound filled the room with warmth. The whisker marks on his cheeks were gone now, his skin smooth and unscarred, and the black stain of the curse mark had faded completely. All that was left was him. Just Naruto. Rumi leaned down, pressing her forehead to his. You're safe now, she whispered. I've got you. The three foxes' tails flicked in unison like a heartbeat, and the storm outside the windows finally eased. For the first time in days, everything was still. Tsunade watched quietly as the girl leaned over the bed, pressing a gentle kiss to his forehead. For the first time since they'd brought Naruto back, the room didn't hum with tension, it breathed. The three foxes stirred. Their ears flicked, and soft, almost pitiful sounds rumbled from their throats, not growls, but small, yearning whines. They lowered themselves to the floor, tails curling protectively around the bed. It was morning. They were mourning their MSTR. Tsunade's throat tightened as she realized it. The creatures weren't just resonance made flesh, they felt. They missed him. The lightning fox padded closer to Rumi, tilting its head as if sniffing her for comfort. She didn't flinch. The air around it shimmered as blue sparks licked over her fingers, harmless and warm, like static from a blanket. The water fox rose next, slipping its sleek head beneath her hand. Its surface rippled when she touched it, cool but soothing, like dipping her fingers into a living stream. Then the wind fox brushed against her leg, its body light and weightless, a soft breeze curling around her in small affectionate circles. Together they made a soft chorus of sounds, chuffs and purrs, like animals starved for reassurance. Rumi smiled through her tears, whispering, "You miss him too, don't you?" The lightning fox blinked slowly, its eyes glowing gold for an instant, and pressed its nose to her palm. Tsunade stood in silence, awe cutting through her exhaustion. They're responding to her like pets. Like they know she's one of his own. Jiraiya folded his arms, watching the scene with quiet wonder. No. Not just that. His gaze softened as he looked at Rumi, surrounded by the foxes that had once scared even him. They're comforting her. Rumi's laugh came out small and watery. The fox's elements didn't burn or cut her, the sparks tickled, the wind brushed, the water lapped softly against her skin. It was almost playful. The creatures pressed in close now, forming a circle around her and Naruto. The lightning fox's tails brushed the water fox's back, the wind fox weaving between them. For a moment, the light from their forms painted Rumi's face in flickering hues, blue, white, silver, until it looked like she was part of the resonance itself. She laid her hand back on Naruto's chest, whispering, "You're not alone, okay? We're all right here." The fox's eyes glowed faintly, and they purred again, a single, deep sound that filled the entire room, thrumming against the windows like the heartbeat of a sleeping storm. Even Tsunade felt it, that strange warmth that seemed to radiate outward, calming the air, steadying her pulse. For the first time since the mission, the air didn't feel heavy with loss. It felt hopeful. Tsunade lingered near the doorway, watching as the girl pressed her lips to the boy's forehead. The elemental foxes stirred again, their faint bodies shimmering like fragments of a dream. They let out soft, almost human sounds, quiet whines that filled the sterile air with something painfully alive. The water fox nudged Rumi's knee, rippling like liquid glass. The wind one brushed its tail against her shoulder, playful currents teasing at her hair. The lightning fox arched against her hand, the static dancing up her arm, not biting but tickling, each spark warm as breath. "They're mourning him," Tsunade said softly, half in awe. "But with her here, they settle. Like pets." Jiraiya gave a small grunt, weary but respectful. "Or like sentinels who finally recognize their new keeper." He turned toward the door. "Come on, Tsunade. Let's give them space." She hesitated, then nodded, following him out. The door closed, and for the first time, the room was silent. Rumi sat beside the bed, still stroking the fox of lightning as it purred faintly. She looked at Naruto, the man who had changed her life, the one who smiled even when the world broke him, and for the first time, doubt crept in like poison. Orochimaru's words came back, smooth and vile. "You're just like me. What do you think he'll do when he finds out? When he learns the monster who took everything from him gave him you?" Her chest tightened. Gods, she loved this man more than she thought she could love anyone. If he left her, if he looked at her the way he must look at Orochimaru, with that same disgust and hatred, she would break. He was her anchor in the storm. The piece of her soul that made everything make sense. She wiped her eyes, her voice trembling as she leaned over him. "I love you, Naruto," she whispered. The words were barely audible, but the foxes reacted. Their heads lifted as one, a small chorus of sound, a deep harmonic purr that resonated through the air, vibrating against the walls. The lightning fox's glow softened to gold, the water fox's ripples calmed into still reflection, and the wind fox curled up beside her, resting its head against her leg. The storm within the room pulsed once, faint and steady, like a heartbeat sinking to hers. And for the first time, Rumi felt something whisper through the air, something not from her, not from him, but deeper. As if the very essence of Naruto's resonance was answering her. "I love you too." She smiled through her tears and laid beside him, her hand on his chest, the foxes forming a ring of light around them. Outside, the wind howled softly against the glass, not a storm, not a warning, but a lullaby. Orochimaru watched from the shadows, a pale smile splitting his face like a knife. The rooftop light caught the yellow in his eyes, made them gleam with something hungry and patient. He listened to the soft cadence of Rumi's whisper, love, fragile and whole, and something in him tightened with pleasure. "All it will take," he murmured, "is the right cut." He had never been a blunt instrument. He did not need to burn the world down to take what he wanted, he preferred precision. Break the heart that holds the storm together, let grief widen the seam until something greater could be forced through. Miruk's name had been a myth whispered in dark corners long before he taught himself how to braid poison into bone and song into flesh. If the ancient spirit slept now, he could wake it under his hand, bent to his will. The plan ticked through him like a clock: push Naruto to the edge, expose the ugly connection between Rumi and the man who had haunted the boy's life, watch the fracture spread. When the boy finally cracked, when the rage and pain yawned wide enough, Miruk could be fetched or forced, and Orochimaru would not hand that god to the Akatsuki. He would take it for himself. Rumi was not a daughter in his mind, she was property, an instrument polished and tuned. He had loved her once as one loves a favorite hound for its usefulness. That love had turned to contempt when she refused to be what he wanted. Now she would serve anyway, by accident or design. He folded his hands and let the smile grow colder. The city below breathed on, ignorant. The foxes that curled guardian side in the hospital could not see the hand forming in the dark. Miruk's shadow lay patient within the world's bones. All that remained was to open a mouth big enough to swallow a god. Soon, Orochimaru whispered, voice a silk threat. Soon, little storm. The rain didn't fall so much as it whispered a slow percussion against the glass walls of the penthouse. The air smelled of city storms and sorrow, incense, coffee gone cold, the faint sweetness of ice cream melting in forgotten bowls. The elevator doors opened with a soft chime. Mira looked up from where she sat on the couch. Zoe was curled beside her, red-eyed and trembling. Bobby slouched in the armchair across from them, all three draped in the heavy quiet that follows crying too long. When Sasuke stepped out, the silence changed. He looked better and worse all at once. His wounds were sealed, his step steady, but something in his eyes had gone far away, the distance of someone who had already begun to walk toward death and simply hadn't told anyone yet. The black cloak he wore clung to his shoulders like midnight itself. Zoe rose first, unsteady. Sasuke. He crossed the space without a word and wrapped her in his arms. I'm sorry, he murmured. We were too late. The words hit like an old wound breaking open. Zoe shook in his grasp, tears spilling fresh. He didn't pull back. He just held her, the one thing he knew how to do when words failed. Bobby watched in silence, stunned. Sasuke had always been kind, yes, but reserved, warm only when the world wasn't looking. To see him now, shoulders shaking, voice quiet and broken, felt like watching a mountain kneel. When Zoe's sobs finally faded to small, uneven breaths, he let her go gently, his hand lingering at her shoulder for just a second. Then his gaze lifted to Mira. She stood slowly. You shouldn't be here. Tsunade said. It's fine, he said. I needed to see you. Something in his tone made her throat tighten. Why? He hesitated. The rain filled the silence for him. I'm leaving tonight. Her heart stuttered. Leaving? Where? He met her eyes, and that was answer enough. Itachi, she whispered, the word small and hollow. He nodded once. You can't, she said quickly. You're barely healed. You. I can, he said softly. Because if I wait, I'll start imagining life after. And if I imagine that I'll never go. She felt the tears burn hot, unstoppable. Then don't go. He smiled faintly, but there was no joy in it. If I don't, I'll lose the last part of myself that remembers why I began. Zoe looked between them, trembling. Sasuke, please. He turned to her, voice quiet. Take care of her. And keep singing. Gaara would have wanted that. Zoe's lips quivered. Come back, she whispered. He nodded, but it wasn't a promise. Mira stepped forward, shaking her head. No. No, you don't get to walk out and say goodbye like this. You can't. He didn't answer. He just reached out, took her face in his hands, and kissed her. The kiss wasn't passion, it was memory, slow, aching, final. The kind of kiss that tried to memorize everything, her breath, her taste, the way her fingers curled against his jaw. When he pulled back, he rested his forehead against hers, breathing her in like he could store her inside his lungs and take her with him. "It's dangerous," he said softly. "But I have to go." "You'll die." "Maybe." "Then don't make me watch you walk to it." He smiled, small, weary, heartbreakingly gentle. "Then close your eyes." She shook her head, sobbing now. "You're asking me to forgive you before you break me." "I'm asking you to remember me whole," he whispered. He reached into his cloak pocket and pulled out a small, worn ring, simple silver, scuffed from years of being kept safe. Mira blinked through her tears. "What is that?" He looked down at it, the faintest tremor in his fingers. "It was my mother's. The one she wore the day she died." He let the light catch it, a soft glint like a ghost's breath. "I've carried it with me since I was a child. Through every mission, every grave I walked past. I told myself I'd give it to someone when I found peace." Her breath hitched. "Sasuke." He took her hand, turned it palm up, and set the ring there like it was something sacred. "I haven't found peace," he said. "But I found you." She broke. Her fingers clenched around the ring, tears spilling freely now. You can't give me this. You're jinxing it." He smiled again, but the sadness behind it was infinite. "If I die, it'll find its way back to you. It always does. It's stubborn like that. Like her." Her lip trembled. "And like you." He exhaled, a sound half between a laugh and a sigh. "Maybe." She stared at the ring, thumb brushing its dull surface. "When you come back," she said, voice shaking, "you'll put it on my finger yourself." He hesitated just for a second, then nodded. "When I come back." "Say it again." "When I come back, I'll put it on your finger myself." She stepped closer, pressing her hand to his chest. "Promise." He closed his eyes. "I'll try." "No. Promise." He looked down at her, and for the first time, the calm cracked. Fear flickered through his gaze. "I can't," he said softly. "Because I don't know if I'll be me when it's over." Her tears fell faster now. "Then be whoever you have to be, just come home." He reached up, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "You make it sound so easy." "It is," she said. "Loving you was the easiest thing I've ever done. Losing you will be the hardest." For a long time, they stood like that, her trembling, him steady only by force of will. The storm outside built to a low hum, thunder distant but approaching. He leaned down, kissed her once more, not to claim, but to remember. When he drew back, his eyes glowed faintly red, the sharingan swirling in slow, sorrowful circles. He was memorizing her. Every detail. Every scar. Every breath. He reached for her wrist then, unwrapping the bandage he'd worn there for years, strp of old cloth, worn thin. He tied it around her arm, the knot neat and sure. "What is this?" she whispered. "A marker," he said. "If I forget where home is, maybe this will remind me who's waiting." Her throat closed. "You really think a scrap of cloth will make me feel better?" He smiled faintly. "No. But maybe it'll make me brave enough to turn back." She laughed, broken, breathless, and punched his chest lightly. "You're such an idiot." "I know." Then, quieter, "You fell for one." Her hand lifted, cupped his cheek. "Say it again." "I love you." "Then prove it," she whispered. He leaned in until their foreheads touched. "When I come back, we'll get married." The words hurt more because she knew he meant them. He stepped back, turned toward the door. Zoe stood frozen, Bobby still silent in the corner. At the threshold, he looked back one last time. "If I don't." "Don't," Mira said sharply, shaking her head. "Just come back." He gave a small nod. Then remember this for me. The elevator doors slid shut, soft and final. Mira stood there long after the hum of the cables faded. Her fingers curled around the ring, still warm from his palm. The silver glinted faintly in the city light, like it remembered its first owner. Zoe moved to her. Sighed, eyes wide. That's. Mira nodded, her voice barely a whisper. His mother's. She pressed it to her heart, tears running freely again. He gave it to me like a prayer. Outside, thunder rolled across the skyline, echoing like footsteps leaving the world behind. So alright folks, that's all for today. Stay tuned for part 14. Do subscribe, like and share for more such videos. Also check out the story and author Slygold on FANFICTIONnet. Press the bell icon to be notified first on release. See you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.